Well, joining us now is the reporter that you heard on that story, Rapelang Radebe, who's our correspondent in Lesotho. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. This is quite a major move by the citizenry of Lesotho. Take us through what motivated them to come together in this way. What's been going on?
Absolutely, Peter, and good evening to our viewers. Quite a bold move, I must say. If you look at how these guys, they said, we have nothing. We don't really have stacks of cash where we can support our cause, but we are appealing to ordinary Basotho to say, if you are as bothered about corruption, if you are as bothered about the killings that happen each and every other day, gender-based violence, and just a ton of lawlessness of things going on. We want pressure government. We want to be a force to be reckoned with, such that everybody comes to the party and we can pressure government to do something about this rampant lawlessness, Peter.
All right. So, I mean, they're calling themselves an investigation arm. What work will they do? You're talking about pressuring government, but will they do more than lobbying?
Absolutely, you are right. If you look at them, one of the gentlemen, I think a hefty, huge one, Mr. Sakake, the senior bodyguard of the former Prime Minister, Tom Tabani, he also joined with Professor Mahau, and he says he has been in the security industry for quite some time. And he says some of how things are bungled in terms of investigations. He also quoted the current case of the former First Lady of Lesotho and said, by the look of things, he does not think that case will actually have a successful prosecution because of certain factors that he thinks the case may have been bungled. And he says, if they come together to make sure that they make sure they close all gaps that could happen, because they said the lack of motivation when it comes to the government structures, it needs somebody to fill that gap, and said that is what they want to do, to lobby, to at least go for preliminary investigation, private investigations, such that any loose gaps that the police may have or the prosecutors they may have, they say we are ready to take this particular case. Sometimes the cases that just go untested because of the lack of interest maybe in the structures. They say they are willing to go all the way in partnership, lobbying and seeking assistance from other sources, even outside the borders.
What have the authorities said about this organization coming together? Because in many ways, it's an indictment on them.
I actually asked that particular question to them and said, are you not being seen to create a parallel structure to government? And how are you going to actually assist? We have some of the people who are inside the structures who are willing to see the right things being done. And we are calling to them as our sources, as our informants. We are calling to them to be the whistleblowers, such that they can actually assist with information in dormant, because maybe the person involved is of higher ranking and cannot be prosecuted at the time. They are saying they want to do all the noise about it and seek international support, even from the media, such that such cases are brought to fore.
There's always a danger sometimes, particularly, and I think you've mentioned somebody who was a former bodyguard or security person to a former prime minister, that often you have people who were in government, who were part of the problem, now wanting to be the ones solving it. Often it's more about settling scores. Is there a danger that this might be hijacked by such people?
You are right. We were pretty worried. In fact, we were more straightforward and said, is it because you probably did not get any lucrative position and therefore you are now bitter and you want to settle some scores? And he said, look, I still work in government. I still have my other private functions. We have come with these men, a lot of them come from the law perspective, a lot of them come from security, a lot of them come, and they say what we want to do is to put things to the public such that they are the one who can actually judge. Actually, he was narrating and say it has become common that some things are accepted. Corruption is not pursued. The story or the classical example he makes of somebody who actually alluded that the check was eaten by the rats. And that story just vanished into thin air, and people just laughed about it. And it was some minutes. And he said, we discovered that that check was actually cashed somewhere in Cape Town. And he said, it has become normal. The politicians, somehow they join forces and cannot point fingers at each other. So he said he's not bitter, but he simply wants to see that Lesotho does not perish in his hands and he cannot do nothing about it. So we took him on his word, but we said, how will we then, as the people, follow up on what you're doing such that we can hold you accountable for things we said? He said, look, to start with, you need to start and scrutinize us as much as you want. Make sure that you ask all the questions. We are opening ourselves to you. And if you find anything with me, I'm willing to resign. So we said maybe we should take their word for it.
Just how bad is corruption in the country? And you talked about bungled cases. Sometimes bungled means negligence or deliberate malfeasance, actually.
Exactly. It is so deep, it is so rooted. And unfortunately, now we are seeing where they keep recycling politicians, they keep recycling ministers. And, there is now a saying that we all know something about to one another, like the popular statement that was said, we all have our smaller Nyana skeletons somewhere that we can unveil. It has become a way of life. If somebody is threatening you that they will expose what they know about you, the best way is to silence them by awarding them maybe with some lucrative positions. Worst case scenario, they'll send them to the embassy somewhere for that person to sort of chill down. So this type of corruption is becoming a norm. People are just looking for a get-rich-quick system through looting the government funds, and it has become acceptable. Maybe this is the cause that came. A lot of the faces that we saw from that particular grouping was faces that we really did not know much about, and we wanted to say maybe we can give them a benefit of a doubt, but actually follow them like hawks and see whether they can live up to their words, Peter.
What's the lived experience of the average Basotho citizens in terms of dealing with corruption? For example, do people generally have to pay someone something to get a public service?
Look, it has now become a way of doing things. You go to apply for your ID, your passport. Somebody needs to secure to be in the queue such that they can prompt you. It starts from, in the villages, you go to the chief to actually sign a declaration or a letter that says he acknowledges or he knows you. That's where it starts. You can literally get nothing done. I was told a few days ago that you cannot register a car in the city because stationery is not there. But then if you dig deeper, you find that some people that they were on the same queue, they have the registration plates, and you go, how did you go about it? It says it's all about who you know. So stationery will be available if you are willing to grease the right hands.
What's the Prime Minister said in terms of tackling corruption? Clearly it's a problem and one that he recognises. Is this something on his list of things to manage?
He was reporting on 100 days, and unfortunately, I could not really get the meat of what his plans are. In one of the interviews that I had with him, he said he's really not the person who wants to put such structures like 100 days and say, this is what I will do. But then I said, how do we hold you accountable if we don't know what your plans are? And the element of corruption, him coming from an economic background, we were expecting that it would be one of the fundamentals, one of the pillars that he knows that a lot of money eroding, getting out of the country, ending up into foreign accounts is a lot. And when you look at people who had nothing literally a few years ago, all of a sudden driving posh cars, owning properties that cannot be explained. We are just hoping that they will be as serious as they say in implementing what they call trying to personal assessment, in making sure that your average salary balances with what you earn. So we are looking that they can declare what they have, and actually somebody who lives beyond their means can somehow be held accountable. We are just waiting. But as a politician, we know he's probably also not trying to sway the people on the wrong side, because 2022 is around the corner. He still needs to prove himself, and he needs still to woo the society to put him back into power and charge. But the question is whether can he really deal with corruption and root it out for real.
Rapelang, it sounds like it's quite a mountain to climb, this culture of corruption, and let's hope that any initiative that gets put on the table will help contribute to change that culture. But thanks so much indeed for your insights and the report. Thanks so much, Rapelang.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you.
All right, that's our Lesotho correspondent, Rapelang Radebe, talking to us about an organisation that's just been formed in Lesotho to try and lobby government and assist to end corruption in the country.